We're on exercise 4.5, okay? Now, just a quick recap on what we already know. Regards to mean, guys, mean is basically another word for average. So, if you, as an example, did 3 tests and you got an average of 90, that would total up, it'd be worth 90 in an exam, okay? So if you had 3 tests, like 100, 80 and 90, if you add up all 3 tests, okay, so guys, when you add up all of these together, you get 270. 270 divided by the 3 tests will give you an average of 90. Now, that's the mean. Can anybody remember what the mode is? Mode? Mode is the most common answer. Okay? Most common answer. And finally, standard deviation. Does anybody remember what standard deviation actually stands for? If you have a middle person, okay, so as an example, imagine a race happens, okay? And the average, we have, let's say, 12 runners, okay? And imagine they all got 12.5. What would be the standard deviation? 0, because deviation means it deviates from the mean. The mean is 12.5. All of them are 12.5, so there's no deviation from the mean, which means the standard deviation is 0. Now, if I introduce new numbers, if I change that to 11.0, I'll add on 1.5 at the end to make that 14. I'll turn this one into, I don't know, 11.5. That means I'll turn this one into 13.5. And I'll keep the rest of them the same. Is the standard deviation bigger than 1 or smaller than 1 now? It's always bigger than 1. Okay, standard deviation is always positive. It's bigger than 1. Okay? So, if you had 2 races, and I said race 1 has a standard deviation of 2.4, but race 2 has a standard deviation of 1.7. Which race is considered to be more competitive? 2, because all the scores are closer together. Is that okay? Perfect. Now, the next thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to use our calculators to find out what is the mean and standard deviation. Now, don't mind without using the calculator. It's not. We don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay. We're going to use a calculator for everything here. So, what we're going to do is start with question 2. So, everybody get out your calculator? Okay. Before you begin, does everybody see the setup button? Everybody see mode setup? Or so shift setup, press shift setup. Go to statistics mode. So, you should see statistics somewhere in this list. Everybody see it there? Number 3. And make sure that your frequency is on. Everybody got frequency on? Shift, setup, press the down button. You were doing statistics, so we press number 3. We put the frequency on. Okay? Now we have to enter statistics mode. How would you do that? Mode, table. Oh, sorry, no, mode, stats. Now, one variable means we have one measurement. In question 2, it's just whatever the value is, okay? So look at this. We have 2, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 13, okay? Now, what we got to do this time, guys, is we have to find out, we have to put in how many times these scores were got, so to speak. So, as an example, a score of 2. 3 people got a score of 2. 6 people got a score of 4. Would you agree with that? 8 people got a score of... Oh, sorry, 2 people got a score of 8. 6 people got a score of 9. So you got to input these numbers here as well. So 3, 4, 2, 6, 5 and 2. Okay, press your AC button. Now what we're going to do is we want to find the mean and the standard deviation. Anybody know where to find these now? Yes? Yeah, see the stat in yellow writing? So shift, stat mode. What button do I press? 4 for variables. Which button's which? Okay, 3 is standard deviation. We'll follow it through. Number 1 tells me how many people did it. There's 22 people in total. So that means that this here, all of these added together, give me 22. Okay, that's what the first button does. Okay, so 22 people total. What does the second button do? So the second button, shift, stat, variable. We go for the mean. The mean is 8. So that means your average is 8. Okay, now move on to the next part. Shift, stat, variable. And finally, the standard deviation is 3.015. Everybody happy enough with that? Okay. It's very handy. We need to go to a question that has a bit of language behind it. Okay, this is easy, but when it has language, it's not necessarily easy. I suppose this one here. Okay. The following shows the length of time for which 120 people have been unemployed. If I circle all of these, what does this mean? They're the amount of people. What would that total? If I added everything in the yellow region, what's the total going to be? 120. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to tell you. Like it could as a question, it could leave one of them as X, couldn't it? And you'd have to take the rest of them away from 120 to find out what X is. They're very keen to do that in Leaving Cert papers. Okay. Write down the modal class. What do we say modal class is again? Most common, which is 6 to 8. Modal class right there. Is this data discrete or continuous? Now, difficult, okay? Time in months. Time in months. And it says that 4 to 6, as an example, represents 4 is included, but 6 isn't. I'd argue it's continuous data. Can I explain why it's continuous data? As an example, 5 months, 29 days. I can keep subdividing it, can't I? 10 hours, 6 minutes, 20 seconds, 10 milliseconds, 9 nanoseconds. I can keep subdividing forever. It's not one or the other, is it? So this is continuous data. Discrete data would be like how many goals you scored in a game. You either score 1 or you score 2. You can't have 1.9 or 2.01. It doesn't work that way. So anything that you measure is usually continuous. Okay? Now, so we're going for continuous data. Calculate the mean time and the standard deviation correct to one decimal place using the mid-interval values. What does the word mid-interval values mean? How do we work that? Mid-interval. The middle of the interval. So every single time you're doing this, the really easy way of doing it is to get the top one, add it to the bottom one, and then divide your answer by 2. Happy enough with that? Add them together, divide it by 2, and you always find the middle. So the first one's going to be, we're going to have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Discrete data would be is or isn't. So as in how many people are there in the room. There's either 19 or 20. I can't say there's 19 and a half people or 19 and 3/4. It doesn't work that way. Alright, and continuous data is when you measure it. It's like a measurement, and you can always get, like, you have tons of decimals and it's really hard to get precise. In a lot of cases you would have to explain your answer. Michael? Okay. What we're going to do here is the calculator. So get out a calculator so you know how to use it. Okay. So once again, you're going to shift stat mode. You're going to press the data button because you want to input new data. This is our old data, so we can just delete everything there. Pressing the delete button. Now we're going to enter these values in. It's 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. Okay. And 11. Now, the next question is, these refer to the time, the amount of months spent unemployed. Would you agree with that? So, how many people spent 1 month unemployed? 14 people. Next one, 17 people. 24 people. 36 people. 18 people and 11 people. Everybody happy enough with that? Okay. What's wrong? Okay. Now, you press, you look for the stat button. Where's the location of the stat button on your calculator again? Shift. It's a yellow button, so it means you have to press the shift button first. What button do you press next to find out where all the information is? For variables. And we need the mean and we need the standard deviation. So we need 2, which is 6. Our mean is 6. Okay. You press shift. See the stat button here in yellow? Press 1 to activate that. Then you have an option. So you press number 4. And then the first one's the amount of people you have, the second one's the average, and the third one is the standard deviation. Yeah. Okay, so you're here, yeah? Shift, stat, shift and 1. You're probably not in stat mode. Have you entered stat mode yet? I'll come down to you in a second and I'll fix it up. Okay, variable for 4. Then you press standard deviation, which is number 3, and you get a standard deviation of 2.89. Okay. Hence, estimate the number of people who have been unemployed for a time that is within 1 standard deviation of the mean time. Now that's an interesting one. That comes back to the empirical rule. And the empirical rule we haven't done since before the midterm. Does anybody remember the empirical rule? If you have your average, yeah, which is dead center, what's 1 standard deviation to the left? 1 standard deviation to the left is x minus a standard deviation, and then x plus a standard deviation. In our case, it would be 6. Take away 2.89 from 6, we get 3.11, and then add on a standard deviation and we get 8.89. Question I'm going to ask you guys is how much of the population is stuck within 1 standard deviation either side? 68% of all people. So what it's asking us in a roundabout way is estimate the number of people who have been unemployed for a time that is within 1 standard deviation of the mean time. It wants 68% of the population. If that said 2 standard deviations within the mean time, it'd be 95. Okay? So you got to multiply 68% by what number? How many people did we have in total? So it's 68% of 120. I think there's a percent button here. I never use it though. Anybody see anywhere? Left bracket. Okay, I'll try this out. 120 multiplied by 68 shift percent. Ah, there we go. 81.6. What one? The empirical rule is what we covered in the previous exercise. Yeah.